Lies of P is the most impressive Souls-like game I've ever played. It took me a whole month to come to this conclusion. Way back in 2011, FromSoft released a little game called Dark Souls. Little did I, and many others, know that our lives would be changed forever. I was instantly hooked and have played every game released by FromSoft since. I'm telling you this so you know how long I've been with Souls games. I grew up with the series. Lies of P is the only Souls-like that does the genre justice. There are so many amazing mechanics and details in this game, both borrowed from FromSoft and completely original, and I think it deserves a closer look. For the sake of keeping my thoughts straight, I decided to split this video into separate topics, so let's start off with the combat. Lies of P follows a similar stat system as traditional Souls games, so once you figure out that the technique is dex, the motivity is strength, etc., you'll be right at home. One really unique thing about the game is that you can mix and match the weapon handles and the blades, which gives you a lot of customization that you don't see in other games of this genre. The boss weapons do seem to be the best, and they have the coolest fable arts, but the fact that the weapon assembly system exists is really cool. Now the handle is what determines your stat scaling and your moveset, while the blade or the head determines the damage numbers, that's what you upgrade, and also the speed of the weapon. So bigger, heavier blades, when you put them on a smaller handle, will still be bigger and heavier and take longer. Fable arts are also determined by your handle and your blade and head combination, which is a pretty cool detail. You also have what's called a Legion arm, which is a lot like the Sekiro arm, and you can get different upgrades for it, and I ended up just using the puppet string because it was so good. But there's a lot of different things you can do with this. A lot of people discount this game, saying things like, Lies of P is just Bloodborne 2, or it just plays like Sekiro, but I don't think either of these statements really do the combat system justice. It's really more of like a blend of FromSoft styles. It has that parry from Sekiro, the dodging and the rally feels kind of like Bloodborne, and the weapons, the way they look and feel kind of straight out of Dark Souls 3 in a way. The enemy placements also feel like they were made by FromSoft themselves, with enemies waiting just behind corners from a little shiny item to stab you in the back and knock you off a ledge. The boss fights and elite enemies are where the game really steps up the difficulty. You have to learn all their timings and their patterns. Most of them you have to at least learn a couple attacks to perfect guard. It really makes you dig into the combat system. Now the level design is also top notch. The way the pathways and the shortcuts wrap around on each other, it feels very reminiscent of Dark Souls 1. The levels are very well made. I've heard a lot of people, even Souls veterans, saying the combat feels unfair and that perfect guard window seems smaller than Sekiro's parry, but I personally love that the game makes you learn all the intricacies of each enemy and boss. Luckily there is like a summoning system where you can summon this specter that helps you beat bosses, and it seems to be pretty helpful, but it's not overly helpful, so it makes the game more beatable. The second half of the game is where the bosses really start to stand out for me. The Puppet King, Laxasia, the Nameless Puppet, they're all so great. And all in all, the game, I think, was more difficult for me than FromSoft games. Sekiro comes very close. I think this was more hard for me personally, though, but I don't think that's a bad thing. Next, let's talk about the art style and atmosphere. This game is more true to the original dark story of Pinocchio, rather than the Disney interpretation, kind of grim fairy tale style. Puts you in more of a dark Victorian setting that, it feels a lot like Yarnum, honestly, but it still feels really unique. The fog and the lighting effects are absolutely stunning, and with the audio turned up, you really feel immersed in the streets of Krat. One awesome little touch is that your character does get covered in like oil or blood depending on what kind of enemy you're fighting. A lot like in Bloodborne, the more you fight, after resting, you get covered in blood, which is really cool. Speaking of the enemy and weapon designs in this game are, for the most part, they're really original and they're fitting to the themes of the game. There's stuff you'll notice from other FromSoft games, but it's nothing that's just like a straight ripoff. Following up on the visual presentation, let's talk about the music and the audio, and I just have to say the music in this game is absolutely phenomenal. The fact that the records are collectibles and you play the piano and you can use the gramophone in the hotel, and it's just really cool. They really integrate the music into the game in a really cool way. It's a lot of classical kind of French tunes. I'm sure some of them are recognizable, but I don't know a whole lot about classical French music, but I love it. It sounds great. Now, the way they do the story is a little bit more straightforward than the traditional FromSoft affair, but there's still like little tidbits hidden in item descriptions and notes. It's still very much worth your time to go out of your way and explore. Not to mention all the quests for the NPCs and things of that nature. There's a lot of reason to replay the game and get deeper into the story. Now, the NPCs themselves are also handled kind of in a FromSoft manner, where they give you little cryptic clues on, whatever quests they want you to do, and you get choices, and, no matter what choice you end up choosing, usually the ending is sad, unfortunately. So, but that's very, to be expected of these kind of games. But I don't think it's quite as extreme as FromSoft, where, in Elden Ring and Dark Souls 3, it's like literally every quest they either go crazy or you just find them dead or something like that. There are some really neat plot twists, but I don't want to spoil anything. The way your character changes throughout the course of the story is a very, very clever way of conveying the theme of Pinocchio, in my opinion. It really asks the question, what makes one human? And I think that opens the door for a lot of cool lore and philosophical discussion, and just, makes you think while you're playing the game. It's kind of cool, and I absolutely adore the way they turned the classic story of Pinocchio into something that feels like an actual FromSoft game. They did the impossible. Now, I think Lies of P is definitely a must-play for fans of Souls games, if you're okay with it being difficult. The way they're able to adopt some of the FromSoft traditions and kind of turn it into their own thing, but still having that same level of quality and polish that the other Souls-like games just don't seem to get, it just blew me away, and I'm really, really excited to see where they take the whole shared fairy tale universe idea next, because the game sets up for a sequel for sure. So yeah, I really like this game. I don't really want to give a rating, but I'd probably give it a 10 out of 10, honestly. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know in the comments. What did you think of Lies of P? What did you think of this video? What other games do you guys maybe want to see my opinions on? Make sure you like and subscribe so you don't miss any of that. Thanks for watching, and have a great day.